that will address building a culture of innovation. Our first one up is Sean Shepard of U+ Venture Builder, and then we'll be following up Sean's presentation with Russ of SEI Ventures. So I'm going to ask that Sean take stage, and here's your clicker, and you're all ready to go.
Thank you. Okay. Is this thing on? I guess it is. No? How about now? Good. I didn't want to have to yell. I've been talking nonstop for 2 days. It's been a great event. It's good to see everybody out of their basements. Finally, after 2 years. My name is Sean Shepard. I'm managing partner at U+. We are a global corporate venture builder, and I'm just going to spend the next few minutes sharing what we've learned from launching over 100 corporate ventures over the last 13 years. My background personally is I founded 5 startups in the Valley, had 3 exits. I launched 3 venture funds. I launched the first global product market fit accelerator called GrowthX, and a school to train people to work in the startup ecosystem in Silicon Valley called GrowthX Academy. I got dragged into corporate innovation quite by accident. I was helping some of my portfolio companies get traction with some enterprises, and one of them approached me and said, you know, this startup of yours is very well prepared. We've enjoyed the experience. They've learned a lot from you. We have our own startups that we're having a problem commercializing. Can you help us? So I said, sure, and I started to look at how they did things, and we kind of turned it around. And through that, I met my partner, Jan, who had built U+ in Europe 13 years ago, and actually hired them. I was a client in the business before I became a partner. We worked well together in both product development and market development to help commercialize these new technologies for this client. So to date, we've created over $1 billion in market value, launched over 100 corporate ventures in every industry, sector, and vertical you can think of. We're not about a product, a market, or an industry or a sector. We're about the stage of 0 to 1, or like as I like to say, taking something someplace new. It requires a different set of attributes, skill sets, and mindsets to be successful, we believe. So everybody who works for us comes from the startup world. They love working in our culture. They love working on cool projects, but they don't necessarily want to work directly for large corporations because of their culture and the way that they do things, and that's fine. So we bridge the gap. So here's what we've learned, right? 95% of corporate innovations fail. According to Nielsen, 30,000 products are launched every year. Less than 5% last more than 3 years in the market. Why is that? Our experience tells us that it's a lack of the right mindset, skill set, and a framework that's transparent to execute on these ideas. And again, this is germane to inside-out innovation, but maybe some of the CVC guys can learn a few insights that they can use to evaluate their startups and how they do things as well. But I see the same story over and over again. We hire the expensive PowerPoint engineers at the big 3 consulting firms, which they pay, they charge us by the slide to tell us what to do for the next 3 to 5 years, and then we go try to find people inside the organization to hand that deck to and say, here, go do this. And then we end up cobbling together resources from inside the business that aren't necessarily incented by this, or it's not their core focus. We bring in outside resources to do pieces of it. Sometimes they don't necessarily have that 0 to 1 experience, and as a result, it's very difficult to do any kind of programmatic innovation at scale. And so to me, the first insight that I want to share with you from my own experience, 30 years of doing this, on the startup side, on the investor side, and now on the innovation side, is that the only metric that matters to me is finding product market fit as quickly as you can with an idea. And my definition of product market fit is right there on the screen. It's a happy cohort of early customers who are willing to tell the world they're better off with you than without you, that you can leverage to scale. And that, to me, is the only metric that matters. Once you get there, you can figure out if you want to spin it out, you want to stand it up as a separate business unit, you want to integrate it back into other parts of the business and ultimately kill it. Just kidding. That's your decision. But to me, this needs to be the primary focus, and I see too many of us focused on products and not enough of us focused on problems and customers early, and we don't have the right commercialization resources or product leadership and management to do it. So the approach philosophically that we've learned to take, that we advise anyone to take, and again, this has nothing to do with us, this is just what we recommend to people, whether they do it themselves or they do it with someone else. Your goal is to find the truth about where a product or service fits with a user or market and what to do about it. It's to create a functional learning team out of the people that are responsible for pursuing that truth to help you get there faster and cheaper. Always with an eye on either profitability or impact as a unit of measure along that journey so that you can show a future path that how learning leads to revenue or impact in a predictable, profitable, scalable way. And that process, the byproduct of that, functionally transforms teams in the way they work. Not necessarily the entire culture of an organization, but I'm very practical about this. I call it functional transformation. It's actually at the team level. And if you can do it at the team level and you can show that, you can actually start to build a groundswell of some culture transformation from the inside out through this process. You need a methodology. This is ours, but I don't care what it is. You need a methodology, you need a common framework, and a language. I don't say a process because a process is a series of tasks that are the same every time. But if you understand taking something someplace new, you know that it's different every time and every day and every way based on the feedback you get from the market. We acknowledge through the right growth mindset that we don't know what we don't know yet until we get out there and start talking to humans. And based on what the humans tell us, we weight the skills, the roles, the responsibilities, the tasks, the deliverables, and outcomes based on what we learn. And it's always different, which is why an agile, team-based approach, we think, is the right approach to this. Look, what's a startup at the end of the day but a bunch of stage-relevant people that see a future that doesn't exist yet, right? And have the vision and the grit and the determination to get it there, but also know how to embrace ambiguity, know how to cross-functionally communicate well between customers and engineers, for example, or as I like to say, humans and engineers. And if you're investing in a startup, whether you're doing it inside out or you're doing it in a CVC fashion, you need to have those kinds of attributes to be successful, in my view, at this stage. So ideation, validation, and testing gets you to an idea of whether or not there's a there, and you have a business model, a value proposition, an initial customer profile and use case, and channels for distribution, and then a clear scope of what's the absolute minimum lovable product that they will use tomorrow, with a clear set of conditions and circumstances around what does success look like and when do we achieve it so that I can use this to tell that story inside to my stakeholders as well as outside to the market I want to grow in. And then that's a very scalable approach. Once you've done it once and you've had a success at a project level, you can get programmatic about it and you can start to staff teams for each of those stages based on your budget and your ambition. And you can actually keep those teams together throughout a project, and they can feel ownership and be a part of that. We have clients that we're literally running 6 different startups at the same time, and it's absolutely possible to be able to do that. And for us, especially in digital, if you can't get to early users and revenue inside of 9 months for less than $1 million, you're spending too much money and you're taking too much time. And that's because, again, we come from a startup world with limited time, money, and resources to find that truth. So we behaved in that fashion with that kind of a mindset. You need digitally native skill sets. So we organize teams around 4 key areas: product design, technology, and market. Just like you have a business co-founder and a tech co-founder in an early stage startup, you need those elements when you're building inside as well. And once, as I said before, they need to be stage relevant. They have to have experience in understanding what it is to take something someplace new, because if they don't, they're in for a real treat. How they should work. We ask for safe space with accountable leaders that give us access to their ecosystem and the resources that we need to learn quickly, effectively, and quietly outside of the business, but in a way that allows us to leverage the key points of the business and the people inside the business that we need to get access to, even in the smallest of ways, just to be able to move quickly. We run agile daily 15-minute stand-ups with the core team. We run weekly insights reviews with the stakeholders to take those insights and make any adjustments that we need to make the following week and identify any blockers. And then we strongly advocate for a monthly steering committee. If you don't have one, create one. You need support. You need resources and runway to continue your work, but you've got to educate your organization on how this works and how that learning gets measured and how that learning leads ultimately to that business model. But they have to understand the story from end to end, because they'll naturally try to measure you the way they measure their daily business, which is not right or fair. This is how a typical team gets composed. We put a commercialization leader up at the top. This is that business co-founder. Their job is to get the outcome of the business, right? They want the business model and they want a recurring, predictable, scalable revenue stream. You have to have a product leader who understands digital at the native level. It's very different than traditional product management outside of digital. You put UX, you put design, you put research, and you put tech teams underneath that to support front end, back end, whatever the stack might be. And the composition of the team and how much time they spend is dependent on the stage. Commercial and UX are heavy involved in ideation and validation and testing. And then you bring in the tech teams for build, and you add to the commercial team for scale. So it goes anywhere from 3 people to 15 people at different times, depending on the scope and scale of what you're building based on what you've learned from the market. So in summary, these are the key takeaways that I try to share with the world, which is you need stage-relevant people. Most of us don't have those folks. And again, by stage-relevant, I mean people with the right mindset and skill set and experience in taking something someplace new. In the startup world, we say that a startup is just a stranger with a strange offering in a strange place, going to other strangers and asking them to do strange things together. And if you understand that as a startup founder, you change your approach to how you approach the market at this stage. You don't sell, you recruit for fit. You're looking for an early cohort of customers that share your vision, understand your current reality, and are willing to give you the things you need the most right now, which is their time and their truth to help you get where you want to go. And it needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship. And very few of us actually structure conversations that way, approach the market that way, go to our sales team and ask for help in that way, which creates other blockers. You need that safe space so you can learn quickly, cheaply, quietly, and effectively. So there needs to be air cover from the stakeholders, and there needs to be a strong reporting function that keeps people satisfied. And you need aligned and accountable stakeholders to what you're doing. And then finally, you can take a portfolio-based approach towards venture building from the inside out. You can curate a series of ideas, create a rubric for stack ranking those against what I call traction effort delta. What's the fastest path to a strategic quick win with the least amount of effort, with the greatest chance of victory that meets the core objectives of the business. And then once you've done it successfully once, you can start to scale that. Okay? Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful.